Assalamu alaikum. This is your host Slim bin Muhammad Rafi, and here is my YouTube channel Zamir Universal. Why United States of America should be held responsible for the all evil, all ills, all problems which are destroying the world peace. What is wrong and why is it that a country which was admired and a lot of people migrated to that country, considering that as a land of opportunity, has turned in the last 70 years into a hell? It's the incompetent people and people who do not deserve, who do not have the ability, knowledge of history, diplomacy, democracy, basic human rights, the constitution of the country, and care and compassion for the well-being of their own people. White House has been occupied and possessed by a small, little tiny peck on the globe, created illegitimately, illegally, in someone else's land, right in the heart of the Arabs, Muslim world, in the most sacred land of the prophets, by force, again by the same devil and evil, the United States of America. I want you to hear from the New York reporter what incompetence now surrounds present President of the United States, and it will explain to you the reasons for the conflicts, whether it is Ukraine war or the recent massacre and war crimes being committed and genocide by Israel in a small tiny strip on Palestinian people. Most of them they are killing are civilians, are women and children. See them starving, see them without water, food, electricity and medicine. See their life support ventilators turned off. See their neonates dying in the incubators. See how they mask and wear masks and hijab and go right inside the hospital and kill the amputees. And they take pride in that, and that's called the Israeli soldiers. So could you ever see anyone with a heart support such evil in the world? And now you can understand the history of Adolf Hitler, and you can understand what happened in the Second World War, why particularly a certain group of people were thrown out. And there is a long history of 3,000 years. At least 1,000 times the Jews have been expelled from the countries, in many cases more than once. So there has to be something evil in this Jews who have been a troublemaker on this globe. And this person who supports that is the greatest devil, who keeps them alive, who keeps providing them the blood supply, provides them billions of dollars of taxpayers' money of poor Americans, and bullets, the latest aircrafts. All the killing machine is supplied by the United States of America. And see the incompetence of Anthony Blinken, see the incompetence of the Pentagon man Austin and the Foreign Secretary, Secretary of Defense, State Secretary, and the advisor, and even the spokesman for the White House for the Middle East. And you can see for yourself why this evil, the greatest terrorist on earth, keeps vetoing, keeps supporting, and see the hypocrisy of this gentleman now occupying the White House. So you can go back more than 20 presidents of the United States of America, and you will be amazed that with the exception of half a dozen, the rest have been possessed and occupied by the Jews. So in fact, America is a Jewish country. With the people he has enslaved, and these slaves are white, these slaves are Spanish speaking, these slaves are yellow races, these are African Americans. The slaves are the whole of the America is hijacked and enslaved by just a few, because the best thing they could do is that they controlled the money. And the money makes the mayor go. So they control the Congress, they control the White House, they control the Senate. So in fact, they control the whole 52 states of the United States of America. And with that might, with that evil, the war is continuing, the killing machine is on every day, every minute. Gaza is being bombed, people are being killed and starved. And you can see who is responsible. The best thing I can do here is to just let the New York Times reporter, an independent white American, reporting and telling you about the incompetence of people surrounding Joe Biden and what Joe Biden was thinking many years ago when he invaded in Iraq. So this warmonger is at the moment in the White House. So what do you expect? Whether it will lead to Third World War, I'm sure, if it keeps vetoing and if it keeps insisting. And you can see his shadow, the another devil, Netanyahu, who is listening to no one, not even Joe Biden, and he is insisting and continuing bombing and killing women and children. And he wants to push them into the desert to just die of dehydration, starvation, and this without homes, because he has destroyed all their homes. So unless the world contains this devil, which is called the United States of America, unless this great empire is now shattered and is gone forever, the start has already been made by Texas, and soon Texas will be another country, and you will see California following Texas, and there are 9 others in line which will separate from the United States. With $300 trillion of GDP and income generated by Texas, America, the rest of will be paupers. Already loaned with $30 trillion will be begging money from the other countries. And that will be the end of the empire. It's about time now the Americans to rise and have a change in the White House and have competent people, compassionate people, people who care for democracy, for human rights, and then alone you can have peace. It's a wonderful country, it has got everything, but it does not have competent people, and it proves from
1945 and the end of World War II and its horrors of the Holocaust and atomic bombs dropped on Japan by the US. Now, much of today's international political architecture, such as the United Nations, stems from the aftermath formed by world leaders determined such a disaster would never happen again. Yet conditions comparable to those in World War II are being suffered by many people today, such as in Gaza, Ukraine, Sudan, Yemen, Myanmar and Central Africa, to mention but a few. And in recent years, hundreds of thousands of people have been killed or injured in Syria, Libya, Iraq and Afghanistan as a result of foreign military action, often with East and West backing different sides. But up until now, there's been no outright fighting between Russia or China and the US. But serious conflicts or standoffs between their allies are ongoing. United Nations peacemaking efforts have frequently been limited by deadlock in the Security Council. So is there a real danger of such global conflict erupting into a third world war? We'll be asking our guest this question and many more in just a few moments. But first, Imogen Kimber reports on where the current flashpoints are.
Carnage and destruction on an unprecedented scale in Gaza, with 100,000 people either dead or injured. President Joe Biden said from the outset of Israel's war on Gaza, the US did not want conflict to escalate to other countries, despite sending weapons and warships. Yet its impact is being felt across the region, with concerns growing that it could spread.
This is an incredibly volatile time in the Middle East. I would argue that we have not seen a situation as dangerous as the one we're facing now across the region since at least 1973, and arguably even before that.
Linked to Israel's Gaza war in neighbouring Jordan, 3 US soldiers were killed in a drone strike, blamed on an Iranian-backed militia in Iraq that's still recovering from the catastrophic war launched by the West 21 years ago. And in southern Lebanon, the Iranian-backed armed group Hezbollah quickly joined the fight, with ongoing exchanges of fire with Israeli forces across the border. Another group allied to Iran, the Houthis in Yemen, is attacking Western cargo ships, saying it's a retaliation for Israel's war on Gaza and to support the Palestinians. The US and UK have begun bombing Yemen in response.
The US, together with the UK and some of their other allies, have violated and trampled on all conceivable norms of international law, including the UN Security Council resolution, which only called for protecting commercial navigation. Nobody authorised anyone to bomb Yemen.
In Europe, as NATO and Western states continue to send weapons and financial support to Ukraine 2 years after Russia's invasion, there are fears the conflict could spread across the continent. Countries in Europe have been increasing their military preparedness, with long-time neutral Finland joining NATO and neutral Sweden close to doing the same. Moving east, the US and China have both been carrying out military exercises in the South China Sea, with intensifying focus on Taiwan that Beijing claims as part of its territory, to be taken by force if necessary. And there is rising tension on the Korean peninsula, with North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un saying unification is no longer a possibility. South Korea and Japan are strengthening their military forces, while Russia has become a stronger ally of Pyongyang since its invasion of Ukraine. Conflicts are also raging elsewhere, with war in Sudan and volatility in South Sudan. That follows the war in neighbouring Ethiopia's Tigray region.
Anything is inevitable, but these conflicts are very dangerous because whatever the intentions, and I don't think that Iran, Hezbollah, or the United States seek a regional conflict by exacerbating tensions within the regions through strikes and counterstrikes, whether that's in Yemen, whether that's in Iraq, whether that's in southern Lebanon, you propel yourself closer and closer to a conflict. I think what concerns me as an American most is that the inner circle around Joe Biden, that's Antony Blinken, Jake Sullivan, and Brett McGurk, have no real understanding of the Middle East. In the case of Blinken, he sees the Middle East through the lens of the Netanyahu government. None of them speak Arabic. None of them are particularly familiar with the culture or the history or even the grievances. That's when we saw Blinken essentially go around and try and lobby Arab leaders to take Palestinian refugees from Gaza. It just shows how tone deaf he is. All of these people are strong militarists. Sullivan, of course, stoking the tensions primarily with China. But Biden himself, who was calling for war with Iraq 5 years before the U.S. invaded. And that's what worries me the most. It's this kind of incompetence, historical, linguistic, cultural, I would say even political illiteracy, and then the ability to bypass Congress to not only funnel weapons, billions and weapons to sustain the genocide in Gaza, but carry out strikes, whether that's in Yemen or Iraq or anywhere else, essentially without consulting Congress. So from an American perspective, this is a very dangerous development within the State Department and the intelligence community. Many people consider what these three people around Biden are doing as very ill-advised and very dangerous. So this incompetence is something that worries me tremendously, especially the longer that the conflict in Gaza continues, and I don't see any signs within the Biden administration that they have any intention of stopping it. Indeed, they spend most of their time in Jerusalem and Riyadh.
Yeah, indeed. We heard Blinken in the story. We
यूनिवर्सल टेलीविजन को सब्सक्राइब करना ना भूलें। उसके बाद बेल बटन पे क्लिक करें और अपने कमेंट्स के सेक्शन में अपने कीमती जो ख्यालात का इजहार ज़रूर